All right, welcome back to the channel again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for coming over. We're back again on the Law and Crime Networks channel. This is more information about the notes. It says, Flurry of jury notes halts P. Diddy deliberations in his ST case. Now, I said before, and I'm going to say it again, this jury seems very, very suspicious. All right. I just don't know what the hell is going on, but I know they're trying to deliberate and figure this out because this is huge. But you know, it seems like some weird stuff is going on. So I'm gonna see what else this is about because you know they talked about the other day, it was like the one note that I know about. Now they saying a flurry of notes. So I just want to see, you know, obviously it seems like they're not on the same page. So we ain't gonna waste no more time. I don't know if I'm gonna react to this entire video because it's like 30 minutes long. I just want to see the part about the notes. So when it starts to shift into another subject, if that happens, then I'll just stop it right there and leave the full video link in the description. We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
The jury has officially begun their deliberations in the Sean Diddy Combs criminal trial. After weeks of testimony and evidence, the case is now in their hands. Will they find him guilty or not guilty? Will they be hung? I'll tell you what, we're going to dive into what happened today, including a question from the jury that shocked us all. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We are now officially in verdict watch in the Sean Diddy Combs criminal case. Jurors were sent back to deliberate today. They had a interesting series of notes from the jurors too, which we're going to talk about. And we also heard the jury instructions, which let me tell you right now, so complicated, okay? So complex. I wonder if the jury is going to just have difficulty with them. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised. And remember what's at stake here. These are not simple charges to digest or apply to all the evidence in this case. But remember, Sean Combs, if found guilty, he could face decades or even life in prison if he's convicted of all of these charges. So we want to talk about what happened today in court. And let me bring on Law and Crime's in-court reporter, Elizabeth Milner, fan favorite. Elizabeth, great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. So first up, where are we in the deliberations process? How long have they been going before they requested to go home at 5 p.m. Eastern?
Well, they've been going for quite a while, Jesse. So far, a little close to 5 hours of deliberation. So they're getting pretty in there, and that's only been on day one. Obviously, they came back with a note that says that they are ready to leave at 5 p.m. today. So unfortunately, they didn't go past 5 o'clock or anything like that. They're not still continuing on with their deliberations, but they will start bright and early again tomorrow morning. But it's interesting, Jesse, because already they're having some pretty interesting questions for the judge as to what their jury instructions and their the jury charges.
Let's talk about that. There were, I think, 3 notes. There was 1 note and then there was 2 notes at the end. Let's start with the first note.
Right.
Happened shortly after they went back to deliberate. What was that note about?
Yeah, well, the first note right off the top was a simple note, or at least I think it was a simple note. It was that the jury had decided who their foreperson is going to be, and that was juror number 5. Now, a lot of us had a couple questions in terms of if it's juror number 5 going back to voir dire and that juror number that was assigned to them then, or does it have to correlate with their seat numbers? But I think we kind of all figured it out. It was kind of going back to the voir dire process. So what we know about juror number 5 is, who again is the foreperson, who's a religious man. He is an investment analyst. He's a Connecticut Country Club member, and so he's going to be the one taking charge. And I think once the jury comes to their decision, he'll be reading that note out loud in front of the court, in front of a lot of people who are anticipating that verdict too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then we got the controversial note, the big note everybody was talking about. Again, relatively early on in the deliberation process.
Yeah, pretty early on. It came about 1:30 p.m. That's when the judge had read the note out loud. I think the actual message of the note came back probably maybe 20 or so minutes, or close to an hour beforehand, actually. That it was had to kind of pertain to juror number 25. And so this particular note was that juror number 25 can't follow instructions, and those instructions being the judge's instructions. And so initially the court was proposing to write back, okay, please explain the nature of your concern. Is it a lack of understanding? Is it unwillingness to follow the instructions? But even as it pertains to juror number 25, what we do know about this particular juror, he's 51 years old, he's a man, and he is a scientist. Again, going back to voir dire, learning a little bit about these jurors and knowing a little bit about their background. So that's what we've learned of him. So initially the defense was like, okay, we're a little hesitant to lay out just all the different possibilities. Just ask them to kind of work through everything. They're still early in their deliberations. They still have a lot of time to consider. So that was the defense's initial and proposed instruction. Whereas the government was like, okay, I think we should be a little more specific. They wanted to review some of the cases or the case laws too. And so their proposal was, I received your note. I remind every juror to remember my instructions. Please make sure that the note doesn't reveal which way the juror is leaning. So then they kind of took a little bit of time, worked out their issues, couldn't come back to a decision at the end of it. So the judge ended up kind of making his own decision in terms of the proposed note to go back to the juror. And it was pretty much a neutral way that kind of, I think, appeased maybe both parties, or maybe not so much the defense as it did the government. But it was a way to kind of neutralize everything. And then for a while, Jesse, we didn't have a note for a few hours. And so then towards the end of the day, we got that one of the final notes from the jury.
Where we at? Today is Tuesday. 4th of July is, let me see, Tuesday, Wednesday is the 2nd, Thursday the 3rd, so Friday. And like I said, a lot of people, I'm just wondering, like, I don't think the jury, this is just me personally, I don't think the jury is trying to come back Monday. I don't think they're trying to come back Monday. And they might want to go into the weekend with this being done. Today's Tuesday. Me personally, I think they might get a verdict Wednesday or Thursday. Might. Because going into the weekend, it can start to get very, very sketchy. I'm just going to say that. Remember I said that.
And to be clear, we have no idea what it means when this juror allegedly is accused of not following instructions. Does it mean, hey, I've already made a decision, I'm not looking at anything in the jury instructions, I'm not looking at any of the evidence, I think he's guilty, I think he's not guilty? We have no idea. It could be that. It could be something specific in the jury instructions that the juror does not want to follow, because there are a lot of instructions in that 62-page packet. No idea. But to be clear, real quick, there are alternates, right? There are alternates. If something happens and this juror is an issue, or there's another juror that's an issue, or there's a juror gets sick or something like this, or has a conflict, they do have jurors on standby, right?
They do have jurors on standby. However, they're not in the deliberation room when the jury and the main jury, that being the first 12 that were assigned to this particular jury. So the alternates were able to go home if there was ever a situation where an alternate needed to be called in to kind of be tagged out with one of the other jurors. And again, we haven't gotten there yet. So all the alternates are not in the main jury room at all. They're not even in the courthouse. They went back home. However, they gave jury staff members their contact information, which included their phone number. So if there is a situation that arises where an alternate needs to be called in, they're able to get a hold of them just by the court staff getting a hold of their contact information that they gave to them before they were eventually dismissed.
Now, the final note, or the final two notes, one was we want to go, home at 5 p.m. They were allowed to stay longer if they wanted to, that they wanted to go home. But we finally got a substantive note in terms of the actual charges. And talk to us about what that note was about. They had a very specific question regarding an actual charge.
Yeah, they had a very specified question, to your point, Jesse, and it had to do with what was on page 37 of the jury charge, and that was the jury instructions. And so the note read, referring to page 37, if a person wants, requests, or asks for controlled substances, has the individual distributed? And I think that was a pretty interesting note, given that one of the counts, especially one of the predicate acts, and so I think maybe the jury was kind of confused possibly on the language of the law that was written, or maybe they just wanted just some more clarification as it particularly pertains to distribution under count 1 under the RICO conspiracy. And so what ended up happening is that, yes, to your point, Jesse, the jury was dismissed at 5 p.m. today. They were able to go home for the end of the day, because I know a lot of people have been asking whether or not this jury has been sequestered. They are not sequestered. They are free to go home at the end of the day. They're just not allowed to discuss the case. They're not allowed to watch any documentaries, movies. They cannot watch this sidebar episode. So if any juror is watching the sidebar episode, no, that cannot be a thing. But what ended up happening is, after the jury was dismissed, the court had come up with the suggestion to answer their question. And
Do you guys think that this jury isn't watching stuff? Be honest. Do you think they're like not looking at anything? If someone asks for stuff and you give it to them, is that distribution? I think she's about to answer it. I'm just trying to see if we're going to be on the same page. I feel like distribution has nothing to do with if someone is asking for it. I believe it's the act of giving. That's what I think. You know, people can ask all they want. That don't mean you have to give. So the transaction is the distribution. That's what I'm thinking. Let's see what she says.
Initial suggestion by the court, so by the judge, was to refer to page 37, lines 1 through 3 of the jury charge. However, he said that both sides can kind of wait until tomorrow to give their proposed kind of note back to the jury. So what the government's response was, though, is that they were kind of concerned about that specific instruction, and they wanted this particular note back to the jury to go that yes. They wanted literally the words yes to be written in the note back, and they say yes, but also give that proposed instruction about referring back to page 37, specifically lines 1 through 3. However, obviously the defense was going to have issue to it, because if you're thinking about, you know, a note going back and it's saying yes, this person is distributing, obviously that's not going to look too good for the defense. So the defense kind of were just like, okay, wait, let's have a little more time to kind of think things through, talk things out with, you know, my colleagues, as well as confer with the government about things. And so what they're going to do, Jesse, is they're going to confer until about 6 p.m. today. Then they're going to probably write it in a form of like a letter to the judge or an email, that type of sort, give it back to the judge, and then they'll discuss it further bright and early tomorrow morning when court begins at 9 a.m.
Okay. All right. Want to stop the video right there, because I just wanted to hear more so about the notes, because I only knew about the one, and you know that they were having some issues with juror number 25. But I just feel like, you know, the most important thing is right now is if that juror, that one individual, is his mind already made up, and which way is he going? You know, is he saying like, my mind's been made up since I seen that video? You know, I said that a long time ago, that by people seeing the video, even though he's not being charged for that, people see that video and say, if he's capable of that, he's capable of this. You know, and a lot of people may want him, the fact that he's not being charged for that, they want him to pay for that. And some people might charge him or say guilty just because of that video. Hey, my whole thing is, I don't know, y'all. This is getting crazier. And this video I'm watching was from yesterday. I still got to catch up with what is going to come out today. It's just like I said yesterday, I was going to go to the gym So I needed to, the news came out when I got back home from the gym. But boy, this jury, boy, is literally, they have a hold on this whole case right now. Think about everything we done heard in all these testimonies. All the stuff we heard before the trial, the rumors of Diddy. Hey, appreciate y'all coming over and watching, man. Please like, share, and comment below. Peace out.